Well, hey there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome into the SMITE 2 Founders Series North America edition today as we continue and, I guess, finalize the playoffs, figure out what three teams are going to be coming to a LAN in December, and have a lot of fun along the way. My name's Gormizer, that's J-Mac over there, and I think I'm excited for today. I don't think I'm excited for today. I am excited for today, and I'm really excited to see what these teams are going to be able to offer, mainly because we have, like, a lot of matchups, I think that you were telling me, that apparently have just never happened.
Yeah, I mean, like, our very first matchup that's going to be happening, team name with 5Ms and Scrumptious, never played against each other in Founder Series, and I think even
That's
going
crazy.
back to, like, the open bracket, or the closed alpha tournament, and then the alpha weekend tournaments, I don't think they played against each other there either, and then even our other semifinal match, Cowabunga and Food Drive, never played against each other. Borscht and Name in Progress later, never played against each other. The only one that has is the Kitty Party versus Mr. Play-by-Play match, and that's only because they were in the same last chance qualifier group.
That's crazy. I'm going to say that. I said that like 3 times while you were talking. That's crazy. We'll take a look at the bracket so you can see the matchups he's talking about and how they're all just straight up, I guess, unique, right? That's the thing that I think is really, really exciting for it. Grand scheme overall is that this is a matchup and matchups, plural, that are just going to be, I think, incredibly, incredibly fun to watch. And, of course, of the teams that you see listed there on the very far, I guess the far right of one and then kind of the middle of the other bracket, only 3 of them. That's right, just 3. That's wild to think about. Only 3 get to make it to the LAN in December. So they are very heavily limited right now. And that's a pretty big deal to see. I mean, we experienced it yesterday, right, with EMEA. And so knowing that of all these teams, like, the first couple matches, like you had said, if we're watching team name but with 5Ms and Scrumptious get knocked down, good news is that it's double elim still, so you're not eliminated. But for the top 2 in those semifinals, for Cowabunga, Food Drive for Globe, team name but with 5Ms, Scrumptious, 2 of those teams are going to be going, which means one of all of the other teams that I did not, or that either were named or not named down at the bottom, are going to be there. And the fact that JMac, one of them won't, or, 5 of them, 4 of them won't be there is crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, we walked into this event with 16 teams for playoffs, and even more so, if you go back to some of the very first open brackets that we were having for this, all the way back in Stage 1, we were sitting at, like, 32 to 40, even upwards of sometimes even like 50-plus teams that are trying to sign up for this event. And now we're going to be knocking down to 3. And everything since the Swiss stage has essentially just been cutting down the playing field. You know, we had our Swiss qualify into the playoffs, and then we had last chance qualifiers. A lot more teams tried to pop in and have slowly been eliminated down to now the 16 that we have here. And then now are being cut down from 16 and 14 for EMEA down to just 3 each ones, and that'll give us our 6 teams for EMEA and North America after today, who are going to be going into the LAN in December.
Well, you've seen the teams that are going to be playing. What about who's on them, right? Especially if you're tuning in, maybe it's the first time you've seen in a while, maybe it's just early in the morning and you need a little refresher. Of course, I think the team that everybody is maybe the most excited for to see in the future more than anything, but also a matchup that I'm really excited to watch. Cowabunga, Food Drive for Globe, that team that's just been full of a powerhouse. Cowabunga, whose like only loss has like an asterisk on it at most. Team name but 5M, Scrumptious, that one that we're watching up front. Feels like a bizarro matchup. Like if you go to like an SPL, let's say like season 9 or something, and then like jump over like 2 parallel universes, it feels like that's the kind of matchup that you would have seen. A lot of players that are familiar in those. Of course, Borscht, Name in Progress, a lot of things that have maybe left some questions, made us excited to see what they're going to offer, but also wondered. I mean, mid laners, the support for Name in Progress, Name very, very misleading, but has been an absolute treat to watch. Watching that versus Jake, I think, is going to be very fun, or seeing how that ends up going versus Jake is going to be fun. And then, like you had mentioned earlier, Kitty Party versus Mr. Play-by-Play, who I would argue are dark horses overall.
Yeah, so there's actually another fun little bit of history of these matchups. So all of the other 6 teams besides these all qualified to this point from the Swiss bracket. They made it whether it be week 3, week 4, or week 5. Cowabunga all the way down to Name in Progress for those 6 made it through Swiss. Kitty Party came in through the open bracket, the second open bracket that we had. Not the very first one that qualified to Swiss, the one that was happening at the same time as Swiss. And it was only 1 week that they didn't get first place. And it was to Gote 5 that they had lost in the finals. But it's been Kitty Party and Gote 5 who were dominating the open bracket for NA the entire time through. Primarily Kitty Party, as mentioned, only dropped a single set the entire time, and it was that first week grand finals. They get all the way into the LCQ, and they have Mr. Play-by-Play in their group, because Mr. Play-by-Play was the other one team that didn't make it from Swiss. They play against each other. Kitty Party wins that set. Then Mr. Play-by-Play, I think, had to defeat Throat Punch Studio in their final last chance qualifier in order to make it here. So both these two teams have had one matchup against each other, but it was in the LCQ, and now are here for a potential elimination match for themselves. So the only two teams that haven't had to go through Swiss are going to be playing each other now in the losers bracket, but obviously that's a losers bracket matchup that, we'll get to see, maybe the results of a little bit later. We're in the big one right now, which, as I mentioned earlier, is two teams that have been playing since the open, like the very first open tournaments we were having, during the Alpha Weekend events, but they've never played against each other. And especially here in the Founder Series, these two teams, Team Name with 5Ms and Scrumptious, never faced off once against each other, at least for competitive play. During scrims, whole other story. But for right here in this direct competition, have never once faced off.
It makes me... I'm going to use the term excited again. I feel like I've said excited and that's crazy today. Those have been like the key phrases. But that's what it is, right? That's how this has been. And the thing that's really, really fun, I think, for all of these matchups as a grand scheme, J-Mac, is the fact that, hey, like tournaments typically do, every single step forward, it just gets harder. It's never going to get easier. The teams that are coming to LAN, it's going to be crazy to watch them. Of course, we qualified our EMEA teams yesterday, but like you said, not just this one having a matchup of two teams who maybe, well, not maybe, who have not played each other. Of course, a lot of players who have experience against each other, but maybe haven't gotten to utilize it in the Founders Series. The thing that I'm really, really, again, just blown away by, one of them's qualifying here. The other one's going to have a hell of a day they have to do if they want to make it there. And the same is going to be true in the Cowabunga versus Food Drive for Globe. Like the fact that, you're going to get it. Of the top 4 teams right now, we'll put those in quotes because it's just the semifinals, but they are the top 4 in the bracket. There's a chance two of them don't make it in, depending on how the lower bracket goes. And so it is going to be really, really something. You just got to tune in, man. Yeah. It's going to be wild all day long. But again, that first one, Team Name, but with 5Ms and Scrumptious. And this is one that is maybe a little more tantalizing. Very similar to like an EMEA where we had like Team Risk. Cowabunga falls under that category of like, well, there's a matchup that you kind of expect it to go one way. There's upset potential, but the fact that you're going into it saying upset potential and that one team just has kind of steamrolled over everybody makes it exciting for different reasons than this one's exciting, where this one is who's adapting better, who's playing the new gods. Are the new gods good for you? Like, did you practice? Metas have shifted. Items that sometimes like I will be like, oh, I read that item 2 months ago and it was terrible. What happened in the last 2 months? And suddenly everybody's picking it up. Blinks are all over the place right now. It just feels like whoever has adapted maybe the quickest, the fastest, and the best, they're going to be the ones that get to put their best foot forward. And right now, J-Mac, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I lean one way or the other. These two teams are absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's really hard to kind of quantify just how close up this match really is. I mean, when you look at the history of the teams that they've been playing, pretty much is, if you were changed around like any of these top 4 to play somebody else, like let's say you swap Cowabunga with Scrumptious, then you have history matchups there. If you swatch, like Scrumptious with, somebody else there. If you switch any of these 4 teams around, you have matchups that have already played at some point. But the ones that you have to look at are kind of the maybe direct comparisons that we've seen over time, where Team Nable with 5Ms versus Cowabunga has never gone in favor of a team with 5Ms. Scrumptious have been able to take one game off of Cowabunga in a grand final style of setting, which has been great for them. But since then, Scrumptious haven't really looked the cleanest. And I can't say that Team with 5Ms has also looked super clean in some of their matchups. Mike has done some very weird things in the support role, and it may or may not have cost them a game or two here and there. I'm looking at the Neath support. It didn't really do too well. In this matchup in particular, because qualification is on the line, you win this set, you just need 2 more games, and you get to come to LAN. I think everything is going to be thrown out here onto the table for all of us to see here.
SMITE 2 more games. We'll see how it works and picks him. I'm sorry, guys. It's early. The gears are just they're getting rid of some cobwebs, dust.
Getting our morning coffee in.
Sure.
Well, maybe for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're not much of coffee.
Nah, I'm just like, this is just what you get. It's the full. It's
gonna go take a jog around the
experience.
building right after this.
Yeah, we're gonna go for a quick run. Team name, but with 5 M's, they'll be first pick overall. Of course, Scrumptious over there on the second pick. This has been a really interesting thing. I think just tackling as a whole picks and bans in SMITE 2 because of the single ban that you have, but also the fact that with the way metas have shifted and balance shifts as often as it does, there's a lot of times where it's like, hey, this is the one god you need to get, and then suddenly it's like, actually, there's 3 gods. If you pick one, they're going to get 2. You have to be careful with your bans. I'm going to be honest, I've been thrown off completely. Chalk and Anubis got banned of all things, but JMag, that leads to a Sobek first pick, and that guy's been pretty good.
Yeah, Sobek has definitely been one of the top supports and also solo lane ends up picks. You know, it's one of those great things about Sobek right now is he, just like in SMITE 1, was very flexible with his 2 primary roles of solo and support, and it works both in really well for them. Up against the Raw, it's really difficult if it does end up being solo lane, just because Raw has some of, if not the best wave clear in the game right now at level 1 and 2, even more so than Anubis, which is a really difficult task to beat because Anubis has always been heralded as like the best clearer in the game. But popping that second ability on Raw to give you the piercing auto attacks that proc item effects, every single one of those in hands, just gives him such powerful wave clear, and it becomes a really difficult matchup that direction. And you pair it with the Varian Somebody, there's going to be a lot of value that comes from the Sobek. Anti-heal is going to be a really powerful thing, and with the Change the Sickening Strike, you no longer have to get that immediate first hit onto somebody. You just need to have them be near somebody, because then that dot and that disease is going to spread around and keep that anti-heal going, which is going to be very, very important just with those top 2 selections alone.
Yeah, we talked a lot yesterday. I think Trelly and you were talking a lot on the desk about Raw solo and just how he's just crazy. He's real good, it turns out, at being able to compete over there. But that it has been where we've also been seeing the Sobek go. At least in EMEA, it has been not too often, or more often than not, other way around, in solo lane. And so maybe that's the matchup. Baron, of course, as well, you had mentioned, but the healing that comes with him, something that the Sobek is going to help against. If he's in solo lane, probably about 15 minutes after the game starts, but it will be helpful in those team fights when it matters most. Hackney and Loki get locked in, though, and again, those are picks that I'm always excited for. It also feels like a couple of picks. Benny Q with the Hecate, it feels like something that he's gone to quite often. Every time we've gotten to see team name with 5 M's, and same thing, Scream playing the Loki. It just feels like something that Scream has been very comfortable on and has kind of returned to. It surprises me to see Fenrir not get a lot of priority as of right now. I mean, 6 picks that are locked in, and he's not even been glanced at. But it just maybe goes to show that these teams have a very specific style they want to play and a very specific mindset comp that they want to lock in, as maybe portrayed even more by a Kernanos Odin lock-in.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that we're not seeing Fenrir because he's still really good. The ability to jump in and stun multiple targets and pick one up does put a lot of threat on Purification beads and Talisman of Purification, but seems to not really be the care that much for teams just because of how in your face you have to get as Fenrir, maybe compared to some of these other gods that can do similar things with threats on beads. You know, you have a Hecate, if you get 2 or 3 people stuck inside that circle, you're gonna want to use the Talisman to break out of there. And I would guess that Benny's really only playing the Hecate because the Raw got picked up. You know, when we were jumping between SMITE 1 and SMITE 2, one of the big things that I was waiting for was the Benny Q Raw. Will we get it this set? You know, maybe in game 2. Obviously not this one here. But when I'm looking down the line of picks, I see one in particular for team name with 5 M's. And I'm almost hoping I'm not wishing it into existence because he's done it before. Mike has played Hades support a couple of times. And it's crazy to say, it has worked the times that he has played it. So it is not out of the realm of possibility that this is a Hades Jingwei duo lane. But with Sobek there, it still leaves that possibility because both of these gods, at least in Mike's hands in this sense, for this team, either of these gods could go to support and then the opposite one over to the solo lane. So I'm not going to leave out the possibility that this is a Hades support just because it's PBM. If it was not Mike, this Hades is a solo lane, but because Mike has done it and has succeeded on it, there's always that looming threat. I think my biggest surprise, not just the Fenrir not being shown up, but that Kernanos and Zeus went so far down in priority here because yesterday, those were the first bans from everybody.
They were
Kernanos, Zeus, one or the other. Usually both were banned or both were not banned and snap picked immediately. The fact that Kern and Zeus not only lock onto the same team together, but get 3rd and 5th pick for them. These are two of the best gods in role, which to me means that we're going to be pushing this Raw over into the solo lane, going to be having this Baron go support, Odin into the jungle, which is very common. We saw Lazarus doing it almost exclusively yesterday in EMEA, so that's no shocker there. I'm just surprised that Zeus Odin is allowed on the same team together. This just feels like some classic SMITE gameplay.
It feels like Scrumptious as a whole for their comp maybe executes itself a little bit easier. We'll have to find out though as we jump into game number 1 between Team Name but with 5Ms and Scrumptious.
Let's go, baby. NA on Sunday. It's time to send some more teams to Vegas. Jorby and Inbound bringing you through the action here with Team but with 5Ms versus Scrumptious, and the desk has broken it down Inbound, but I'm curious about your thoughts as well as we get started. It is indeed Hades in the solo lane against this Ra, which we were just talking about. You think that is probably a mismatch?
Yeah, I just think it is a laning phase that Hadex and this Ra should just have very free clear. You can't really gank the Ra with the setup also, because if you do look to, drop Hades ult on him, he'll just be able to blink out of it. He'll be able to out pressure you. I think the Sobek makes a little bit more sense over there. Gives you a little bit more kill potential, but I think it's fine either way. I think also there is a very big strength to Sobek in support. It gives you just like this opportunity to kill the Baron. If you put the Hades in solo or in support against this Baron Cern, it's just a really bad laning phase. You're going to get out cleared. You're going to get out pushed. You're going to lose that 2v2. So I do think I prefer this slightly. And actually, Cyclone walking up, going to be taking a lot of damage here.
Got to be careful, especially with how you've been seeing Zapman play in that Cernanos lately. But yeah, like you said, the shell pops out. Not something we saw a single player pick up yesterday in EMEA, but the shell makes its appearance here. And I mean, what's the logic behind that? Even within Odin yesterday, we saw people just foregoing shell to go for other relics. Is that kind of how you're feeling as well? PBM trying to escape here, went for the buff steal, but did not get it. We'll have to go back to lane, but I'm curious about your thoughts about that.
I think shell has found its little niche. I think it is a reliable relic for what it does. My only issue with it is the value that Jingwei gets with it is just not nearly as good as she gets with Blink or Aegis or, I mean, even beads in some cases. No beads needed in this game. But the survivability that she gets with one of those more singular for herself relics, I think would have made her just nearly impossible to kill from the Scrumptious comp, because there's really nothing that the Scrumptious comp has for instant CC outside of an Odin stun, and even then, Shinto's actually gonna be taking a lot of damage here.
Ooh, both players use their blinks there to get out, and some early engagements that lead to nothing. So back and forth there, a lot of action though. PBM will have to back off just a little bit. Still wanting to put that pressure on, gets a good pluck, but Cyclone Spin has minions in the way, has to move a little bit. I think that actually cost him an auto or two, which would have made that a little more dangerous. Meanwhile, having to avoid the shield, Scream will sit right underneath. So little 1v1s or 1v2s happening across the map right now early on. Nobody really getting that distinct advantage, but mid lane is getting picked on a little bit as they got forced out of lane, at least at the start. But still, pretty much what you want out of both teams when things aren't going your way. You don't give up that first blood, don't give up that extra gold. Still going to be chasing them down into their jungle. PBM always on the way for it, looking for a pluck, prevents the back, will leave.
I think the middle portion of this game is going to be a lot of it dictated by Nog on this Odin. There isn't really a lot of engage for their comp outside of Odin. Like, Baron's got this semi kind kind of fishing for starting fights, but Nog is really the only one that's going to be able to start one on the side of Scrumptious. So if he's going to be able to get ahead, he's going to be able to do what he needs to do to not either A, take too much damage, B, just get a good setup. But seeing him invade that red buff early, walk at Scream, and take that, I think that shows a lot about how confident Nog is showing. Because Nog is, again, he was a mid laner in Smite 1. He's still transitioning to jungle. Yes, brand new game. Yes, you still have to learn a lot of those mechanics again, but it's a different way to play.
A little bit of trouble. Scream forced to abandon the mid lane. Because he got picked on immediately, and PBM continues to push everybody back, make sure he can get some vision up here in the left jungle, deep in enemy territory. But I mean, it will be interesting to see how they work around this Odin. We've definitely seen games in Founders Series where this Odin is the difference maker. He's the only diving really component that you need. Meanwhile, the ult popped and immediate blink forced out of Haddix. Cherry's gonna been having an interesting time there, but he actually gets some lane pressure over in solo lane. They're gonna get a buff steal as well out of it. So a lot done over here with Scream and Cherry to put some pressure on. That blue buff isn't up just yet. And they are hoping they can find a pick here, but they don't really have can't waste too much time doing it with the wave coming out. I don't know if they're gonna be able to get that buff or not.
And it seems like the teams have opted to just trade sides of the map. Haddix on the solo side is going to be giving up his buffs. They're going to be losing red and blues, but they're getting speed on the opposite side. And if you are playing this side with team with 5Ms, making sure your Hades is in a good spot, I think is what you need to do. We've seen when Raws get out of control and they can just 1v5 and kind of shut down the entire game. I think this is a good play by team with 5Ms because you also don't want to fight around your Jingwei. This is a character you want to farm out. Fighting into a Baron Cern is not easy at all. And you can't really rotate your mid over to also take this fight, or your jungler over, because then you're fighting into a Zeus and Odin. So I think how team with 5Ms is playing this early game is perfect. You want to make sure your Hades is in a good spot, because if he can get enough farm, if he can get to we'll say 2-item spike, where he can actually get to those 2 items, this laning phase should be very, very easy for him. He should not really ever get threatened. And I think they know that, and they just want to make sure this Raw doesn't get out of control.
Yeah, this has been the quietest 5 minutes for a match in North America. There has been some fights, but no first blood yet. And Searing Pain was forced out, but you got in trouble as Scream comes through and Haddix gets shut down. So with a great job, Cherry had popped that blink earlier from Haddix, and that makes him susceptible to another ult. Hades proving a fine complement with Scream giving him a lot of attention. Meanwhile, the buff looks like secured by Scrumptious here on the duo side.
And Scream has spent the last 3 minutes on the right side of the map trying to find something, because that is just the important god. Like, Ra is very important in solo lane because he is needing to get ahead. If he doesn't get ahead, he can't do too much. They are pulling this Gold Fury, about 1,000 health on it. Nobody here can test. Trading the right side of the map, the death to Haddix for that Gold Fury. Nice trade for Scrumptious. They've also been invading a lot of reds and speed, so they've accumulated a nice little gold lead right now, about 1,000. Still doesn't mean much. We still haven't seen anybody really, blow the door open or extend their lead a ton, but I think this is very beneficial to team with 5Ms. I think when you scale farther into this game and the longer this game goes on, Hades is going to be more effective than this Raw. Loki is probably one of the most effective junglers in the late game. Hecate versus Zeus, that one's a little bit of a coin flip. Zeus obviously a lot more area damage. Hecate though has that ultimate that just has a big playmaking ability. And then So Big Jingwei might be one of the most obnoxious dual lanes you can play against, because you can never really fight over there, and they will always be able to be either engaging whenever they want or disengaging whenever they want. So I'm a little worried if I'm Scrumptious. I'd want to push my lead a little bit more, but there's really no perfect place to play. If you try to commit onto the Hecate, she just ults out of the Odin cage. If you try to commit to the Sobek, that's a tanky croc even at this point. I think it's really going to be reliant on Ronnie and Nog walking through the jungle and trying to find something, because that's a lot of CC and a lot of chase potential.
PBM really wants to steal this purple buff. He's been in a standoff here with Zapman, who finally gets a little bit of assistance and forces PBM out of that jungle. Interesting though, as it looks like Cherry's going to steal another buff away from Haddix up there. It gets completely zoned out. Haddix forced to buy that Talisman of Purification first, where, we talk about Raw solo. part of the reason he's so dominant is because you can rush Gladiator's shield, get those ability procs off. But with a magical opponent in the solo lane, it becomes a little different. We see what the attention Scream has put over there. It's been harder for him to get online. Meanwhile, PBM still taking a look, man. Really wants to get a good fight going for his team. Wesley sitting on the front line will pull off. He's not one to overextend either.
Yeah, he's just kind of
little pop sickening strike. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just trying to be harassing the enemy team, trying to slow down whatever they want to do, and he's looking. And if something happens where he can maybe get a pluck under the Zeus, or he can, you know, pluck the Odin, and there's good follow up. That's really all he's looking for. They couldn't even do the Naga because of how PBM was positioning. There's a very easy follow-up also with this Hecate and Sobek, where Sobek can pluck just about anyone, and Hecate's able to follow up with how long range her abilities are. Her 1 goes a lot farther than expected. Her 2 has a very, very long range, and then her ultimate is probably the longest range out of all of her abilities, so she has that. And Mike plays that really well, baits out Zapman's ultimate. They are going for the Naga, and Mike is still kind of standing around here. Could be a worry if Nog wants to kind of jump in and look for that cage, or Blink and look for that cage, but just getting this Naga, and another small win for Scrumptious. But I mean, if you're looking at the gold lead, Jorby, they aren't really able to push their lead. Both teams almost seem comfortable playing towards the middle portion, or maybe the next gold Fury.
Yeah, it's just been a lot of standoff. You got him with the ult. Now you're in a lot of trouble. That cage will save the day. Still, you'll get plucked for it. Just looking around at Nog. Happy to sit right there, but that is a great job saving Shinto from what was a assured disaster. And again, only 1 kill on the board, almost 10 minutes in. You've seen a lot of posturing, a lot of aggressive movement, but in terms of actual commitment, it's been not as much as you might expect. And when you have committed, well, both teams have been able to either bail each other out or get themselves out of a bad spot. No one's really been over positioning at all in this game, and I think that's where that map control becomes even more important, right? When you're not continually taking gods off the table, when people aren't on their respawn timers, it means that there's just a lot of more productivity, uptime happening around the map a lot more. It puts a lot more pressure on your ability to farm and your ability to farm effectively. Here's a little trouble for Zapman. Still had a dash to get away, but so do they. Cyclone spin, a little pop. So execute, Aegis out. And a little bit of assist comes a little too late as PBM will pick up the 2nd kill here for Team Up with 5Ms.
And Mike getting that kill is actually perfect, because Mike was the one that was behind. Him actually getting that kill catches him up, puts him even with Ronnie almost. Cyclone doesn't need that. Just killing Zapman stops Zapman's from farming. So I actually think that's a perfect kill for Mike to get. Haddock's putting a little bit of damage, a little bit of pressure here on the Cherry, but this is still a solo lane that is perfect for Cherry. Cherry doesn't care to still even win it. He's just in a spot where, again, he's going to outscale the longer this game goes on. Ra really spikes with that first 2 item spike. And if he's behind, he might even die here to this gank.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if he's going to get out of it, even with this blink, because Hades can come right through with the ult on the dash. Haddox will sit underneath at half health. I would just sit there and be like, all right, come after me now. This lane definitely owned by Cherry, and we see the attention Scream is putting over here too. And I think that shows you how much they respect that Raw and how much they want to keep it down. But it is a tougher lane in general, right? Sure, he's got the Gladiator shield online now. Get a little more of that damage out, but you're just going to be taking a lot more damage too. And that kind of takes away half of the benefit of what makes Raw solo so good. So, talking ad nauseum about it, but I got to say, it's one of my favorite things in Smite right now. It's just hilarious seeing him stand there and destroy people. But I think that's kind of what makes this interesting too, right? Is game planning against it and showing you, look, this is not as unbeatable as you think it is.
Yeah, and I was actually kind of worried about this Hades and how he's going to farm against the Raw, but how they answered that was they just made the early game a 2v1. There was really nothing Haddox could do. And now Haddox at this point, if he tries to even walk up, you know, a step too far, Cherry has an opportunity to chase him with Blink and with the like triple dash from ultimate and then just his base 1. So there's a lot of movement to follow the Raw. If Haddox is even pushing a little bit too far forward, if he's looking for a proxy, or if he's looking for a blue buff invade, he just can't do it. And you see him having to play safe, even though he would win this 1v1 trade right now with Cherry. He would win that fight. he just can't play up because he doesn't know where Scream is. He doesn't know if he can play, you know, aggressive over there, because if he does step too far forward, he is just dead. And Scream's already shown that he will happily play over there.
Well, Cyclone's been starting to slowly get ahead of Zapman as well. Has already started his third item, with Zapman a little behind on it too. And we always talk about Jingwei is that if you're even, you're golden. And being ahead even better at this stage in the game. PBM not going to be able to get his buff, but hopefully get a kill out of it. You get the jungler, Nog gets knocked up as well, but only so much Cyclone Spin can do against an Odin with Gladiator Shield online.
And looking at the side of Scrumptious' comp right now, they really don't have much damage. They have a Zeus with Soul Gem and Purification. They have a Baron with Purification and Glad Shield. So they've got a few Glad Shields. But like, their Zeus is not going to be doing much damage. I think this is now a time that Team with 5Ms should look for a fight, because there's really no damage that Scrumptious has right now. They have to play a fight perfectly if they want to win it.
Well, the fight was brought to them as Scrumptious will try to force them out of their jungle. And they will succeed for now. Searing Pain misses the target. And a little bit of root, but Cherry is not really hurt for it. So they started a fight. Scrumptious didn't want that fight as deep as they were over. Or as deep as Team with 5Ms was. And Cyclone Spin gets forced out of lane here for now. From Zapman, can't count him out at any stage in the game. Not with both gods with Haste and Fatalis online. You get the stick, but you got to be careful when you stick around too long, or you'll get absolutely exploded on. Cherry popped him.
And just another really nice play by with Team with 5Ms. Cherry stays over on the left side of the map. They see Zapman appear on that wave. Scream goes and covers the right wave, so there's nothing for Haddix to farm freely. This is just really good map play by Team with 5Ms. They're taking fights that there's really no benefit for Scrumptious, and Scrumptious isn't forcing anything. This is almost what we saw from Team GG yesterday, Giovanni Giorgio, where the game kind of just was happening and they were really not doing too much. Pyro getting a little low here, 500. Pyromancer has been destroyed by Team with 5Ms. Now they have that other opportunity to push this a little bit more. They have now a Gold Fury to look for. They have towers to now look for. And if there's a 5v5 fight or a 4v4 fight right now, I don't know how Scrumptious is going to win.
Yeah, talk about that critical juncture playing for the next Fury, and that will help extend your lead a good bit. Meanwhile, 3 are going to commit on the Haddix, who has to blink out. That's not even going to be enough. He's just going to Searing Pain to death. Cyclone Spin on the rotation will get another kill under his belt as Team but with 5Ms continue to shut out and shut down Scrumptious with everything they've been trying to do. Still a very close game, but slowly starting to trickle with 5M's way.
And 5Ms, again, I want to state how well of a game that they are playing, because they are forcing fights that they know they can't lose, and those are the only fights they take. Scrumptious really hasn't responded with anything. They got the one Gold Fury when Haddix got ganked in right lane, and again, Haddix dies in right lane, they get another Gold Fury, but I don't see a way how they're going to win any fights when the game goes longer and longer with these current XP and gold leads.
Yeah, I mean, Fire Giant going down quickly. They are here to contest it, but how will they move in on it? They need Odin to get in there. And he gets silenced for a second, but they haven't done enough damage to it yet. They get in. This could be dangerous. It might be a steal. He has a chance. Drops Ring of Spears. It does look like, well, it looks like Shito's getting the kill on PBM. I do not see it on Hecate, though. And yeah, no, they did get it. You're right. It's hard from this perspective for me. My eyes. Tough, but Cherry does have that Fire Giant buff on, so Team but with 5Ms survive the steal attack.
And honestly, that was a difficult call to even make, because you don't even have Sunder on PBM. You're secure as Hecate, and that's just about it. And you're fighting into the secure of Zeus, Ra, and Baron. I've liked how Team of 5Ms have played so far. That's the first play where I'm a little, curious why they felt they had to force that. They didn't have the objective damage, really. Like, Hades is not destroying objectives. Neither is Hecate, so it's just Cyclone and Scream are the only ones really doing damage to it. It just seemed a little forced. And I think if they just played it a little bit slower, they don't have to go for anything there. But it ends up working out at least well enough, because they now have Fire on 4 and a Fire Jingwei at this point with Fatalis, Kin Size, this build. Like, we're just gonna see this, Jorby.
Just gonna tower dive. 258, dead. Thanks for showing up, Zapman.
Crazy.
That is wild stuff, and well, that's like you said. That's what the Fire Giant buff gets you. This is gonna really start getting ugly now for Scrumptious, which you were really alluding to. This tower will fall, and I mean, where's the angle back in here for Scrumptious? Because you're down 3 levels if you're Zapman. You're down, you're not down too far if you're Baron. You're even with the Hecate if you're Shinto. You're 2 levels down though on the Odin, and you're starting to lose a lot harder to Cherry, who has been rotating a lot. If you're Haddix, you're not able to match that rotation that 5Ms have been able to do. So like, where's your way back in here?
I mean, I'll be honest, they have only one way back into this game, and it's really through picks. If team with 5Ms just plays sloppy and they can just find a few kills every once in a while, Scrumptious can find a few kills every once in a while, I think that is really their only way back into this game, because I still don't see the damage output from Scrumptious. I don't see how their characters are also going to survive the dive of Hades and Loki. This is a game where it's not over yet, but you're going to have to make a bunch of good plays in a row, and they can't really be team fights. I don't see how they're going to win a team fight.
They don't even want to aggress what looks like a favorable situation for them there. There comes Cyclone Spin jumping in. He's the stronger ADC so far in the game. Yeah, I mean, overall control of the jungle as well. Scream over on that right side. Shinto's coming across as well. But 5Ms will start the Pyromancer. You know, the Des talked about how both of these teams, despite both participating in a lot of the closed alpha tournaments that happened before Founders Series, they never actually played each other in tournament play, which is pretty crazy that they've avoided each other for this long. Scrumptious and 5Ms both had a really solid Swiss, really solid stage here in bracket play. Right now, Team Butt with 5Ms are showing maybe they're a little different. In game number 1, 6K gold lead, harassing Baron, and just Ragyu had nothing. Nothing he could do at all. Alt pop that found nothing. It did zone Scrumptious out of that tier 2 a little bit more. Cyclone's been just going to dash forward. Not fearful at all. And I mean, when you are a level 18 Jing Wei, I wouldn't be fearful at all. Chin size and executioners online. Yeah, you're going to be hitting pretty hard here at 19 minutes.
Yeah, just a little safety play here by team of 5Ms. This Zeus probably is the one damage source that you have to be worried of at this point. So I like that they don't play this too aggressively. They opt to give it up, but Cherry really smartly stopped Zapman's back, and now it's just a very easy collapse. Zapman is now dead. They'll be able to get this Gold Fury as long as Cherry just doesn't die before his team gets here, but he should be fine.
Good jukes. A little pig action, but no worries. I mean, honestly, I feel like Cherry would have just won that straight. Straight out himself, but let's get him done. Let's get the Gold Fury, and let's put them away is what Team Butt with 5Ms are saying right now. I mean, really well executed with inbound, what felt like it was teetering on a knife's edge for the first 10 minutes of the game, right? We didn't get a kill until 9 minutes in, and it kind of felt like 5Ms were maneuvering the right ways, but Scrumptious were also moving in other parts of the map. So like this was very close, right up until like that 11-minute mark when that first, the first Gold Fury went down in 6 minutes, but the 11-minute mark when the first real team fight happened, and 5Ms won that. But all that harassment over in the solo lane has really paid off, and Cyclone Spin just outright winning his lane with PBM, I think, is also a huge difference maker.
Yeah, and it was a pretty even game. Like, you had about 1,000 gold lead for Scrumptious, but their comp isn't a comp that you want to be even with. This is a comp where you want to be snowballing. I mean, and you see right here, team with 5Ms is massively ahead. This is the spot that Scrumptious would want to be at this point, and it's the opposite side against a team that is scaling. But I like, you see Ronnie kind of wrapping around the backside, maybe looking for a fight before they're actually ready for it. I think that was their real one opportunity, because you're not winning a straight up 5v5 fight at Fire right now. This Raw is not going to be very effective if he walks towards the Jing Wei. Jing Wei will just run him down with Fatalis and kill him. Nog is not doing enough damage, nor is he going to be enough CC for the team to kind of play around him. Zeus's damage is good right now, but it's really not great. He maybe can kill like one, but I don't think Mike is going to die. I don't think Cherry's going to die in the ultimate. My worry just gets more and more with Scrumptious' comp the longer this game goes. And even with them being behind at this point, if the game was just scaling into the late game and it was an even game, Mike forcing out the Baron ult, really good right here. Maybe starting a fight? Nope, just going to be looking for that trade right there. Really good play by Mike, because now Ronnie is just useless in this next fight. They're going to have to give this Fire, or they're going to lose the game if they overcommit.
Yeah, Scrumptious seemed to want to at least take a look. Yeah, we're going to group for No doubt the fight right after it drops. PBM will make sure there's no other kind of nonsense that's going to happen, and Nog getting tossed around like a rag doll. Scream will pick up the kill. The Ring of Spears host to nobody, and now they're all going to push forward, say, you know what? We don't need the Fire Giant. We'll just kill all of you. See you later, Haddix. PBM gets credit for the kill, lurking through the waters, forces out an Aegis, or forces out a Blink, excuse me. It was the Talisman, the purification popped. You know, lots of glowing things that relics and items give you, and if you miss the words, you might not know what it is, but there you go. They get a couple of picks. This should be a Fire Giant.
And it's just team with 5Ms, they don't need to do Fire Giant until Scrumptious just gives it to them, because they'll just keep killing anybody that walks in. They have a very easy comp from ahead. If anybody walks up, Mike just plucks them. If a fight breaks out, Cherry can zone the entire backline and really not even a threat to die. And then Cyclone can just about do whatever he wants. This Zeus pick last by Scrumptious, I think was a really good pick, and it makes a lot of sense for the comp. I just don't get the CERN value over the Jing Wei. I think if you have Jing Wei on the side of Scrumptious, and as we're talking about this, team with 5Ms is getting this free Fire Giant. Scrumptious is finally opting to give it up. As we saw, the CERN was picked before the Jing Wei. Yeah. I don't see a world ever to pick CERN over Jing Wei unless you are playing the most uber, you need to dominate solo lane and play for every camp that you can. I think if you trade out this CERN for the Jing Wei, give them that opportunity to play for that late game. Because if you have a Jing Wei on the side of Scrumptious, that's a win con in the late game. Jing Wei Zeus is one of the best 2v2s in the backlines that you can get. That man dashing and trying to look for a pick here. He is just dead. And I think that means Shinto's now dead too.
Yeah, Shinto, no luck for you here. You get pulled in by the Pillar of Agony, and of course Loki will dagger you to death. I mean, Zapman last week, you know, I think it was against a Jing Wei where he was running riot in the lobby, but his team was ahead beforehand. And I mean, a Cernanos who was ahead early is way different than the Cernanos we saw in this game. Cyclone Spin simply had his number, but we'll get another kill. I mean, you gotta give a lot of the credit to Polar Bear Mike as well with the way he plays this Sobek. Very aggressive, very great at zoning out anything Scrumptious wanted to do. How many times he just kept them out of lane, and Cyclone Spin's just sitting in lane, farming the minions by himself. So PBM wasn't even sharing some of that XP, but then he ended up getting some of those kills and really helped solidify this victory for Team But with 5Ms, taking the first game here in the upper bracket.
I mean, that was just a dominant performance by team with 5Ms. That did not look like a game between the second and third seed. That looked like it was a game between like a quarterfinals matchup of first seed versus 16 seed. That was very flawlessly played by team with 5Ms. If they could just keep up playing around how their comp wants to play, that is the type of style and the type of team that we can see. And on the side of Scrumptious, if we're drafting a comp like this, we have to make plays. Why are we playing around, or why are we picking this Raw and then giving him no help, making him play this 1v2? We're playing around the duo side of the map. You kind of have to play to pressure everything, but the Raw is the one that needs the most help. I think that's where Nog has to play if they're drafting something like this.
Now, Scrumptious gets shut down with the game plan, and Team But with 5Ms will take the win. They have one more to go to move on in the upper bracket. Will they take it, or will we have game 3? Find out after the break.
Welcome back, everyone, to the SMITE 2 Founders Series. I'm going to keep calling it NA Edition just because it feels fun. It feels like it, I don't know, it brings, that's red, that's North America. That's how you know we color code things. It was kind of one-sided there. We'll get into that in just a second. If you watched that game and you liked it, I've got great news for you. A place where you can watch a lot of other games that have happened in the past. Whether you want to go back and you're really curious about what SMITE 1 was like in the year 2015 for some reason, or you want to relive a world championship that you were at. Maybe you just want to keep up with what's been going on in the Founder Series and you're kind of lost right now, or you want to watch matches. Maybe you can't watch something that's going on later today. Maybe you missed something yesterday. Well, I've got great news for you. You go to youtube.com/SmiteVod and you will have all of that and more. There are curated playlists. It's actually really well done. You can watch a whole ton of stuff. Maybe there's a content creator match that was really funny that you remember that you want to go see. Again, world championships. Maybe you just are like me and sometimes you're like, man, I feel like I remember in a qualifying match way back when X happened, and you just need to go figure out what it was and if you're right. And there's a great way to do that. It's youtube.com/SmiteVod. But for now, it's Gore, it's JMac, and it is a pretty heavy, I guess, left side of the screen, since they were the order team, leaning victory for team.
I think it's safe to say that that was a bit of a beatdown for Team Name, but with 5Ms. Scrumptious just did a lot of non-fighting, I guess is kind of the best way to put it, because there didn't need to be a whole lot of flashy team fights or flashy kills. It was small individual picks time and time again, and a lot of it was focused over in the dual lane. A lot of the success that Scrumptious has had with the raw solo is teams try and play against the raw solo. They let him get a couple items and say, okay, well, we need to keep knocking this chicken down. You know, we need to keep dealing with it. But what Team with 5Ms did was they just kind of ignored hi-rez. They said, okay, well, we know you're not building damage, so you're not going to hurt us. We don't need to worry about killing you because you're not really going to be healing a whole lot because you're focusing more on what little damage you're going to have in the early stages. They got the early pick on hi-rez, which I think is what kind of allowed Team with 5Ms to ignore that lane, is you see Scream go for a very early rotation of solo lane, get the pick on a hi-rez and say, cool, the chicken is down, no need to worry about him anymore. And then it was just a full-on effort to keep Zapman from being able to play the game. There were multiple times we pan over and Zapman's trying to either defend a buff or he's standing by his tower just trying to get some farm. And Cyclone Spin took it personally. There was a point where Cyclone just tower dives Zapman by himself. I mean, Mike is on his way to be behind Cyclone if he needs to, but by the time that Mike gets to that fight, Zapman was already 1 HP, and the auto was already being fired out for the killing blow. So it was effectively a solo kill for Cyclone Spin in that dual lane. I think, while I do agree to an extent with what Bobby was saying in the analysis, which is why would you ever pick Cernos over Jingwei, I do think it's a it is a comp dependency style of thing. Yeah. And I think that Jingwei works better for Zapman because Zapman doesn't really play like the old vintage Zapman where you're wanting to get super aggressive or having the ability to do so in this game. Having the Jingwei for Zapman in that game would have prevented those tower dives from happening. It would have allowed him to be a lot more safe. But because he's on a Kernanos who has like a 16-second, no CC immune, no kind of any immunity dash that just does damage, it makes him very susceptible for these ganks and these rotations.
Yeah, especially when you factor in, like, yesterday we were watching Coast play, and on the Kern would dash and then blink to close the gap so he could get a kill. Like, he's playing aggressive, and that's what you do. Unfortunately, it's 0-5, I believe, there for Zap is what I saw, not... maybe not the most glamorous slash line towards the end. And we'll have to see how do Scrumptious as a whole, how do they answer back? What do they change game 2? Well, picks and bans will start off right now. They will swap sides, so that immediately tells me that they're trying to make a more proactive approach to this. But it was also really interesting, and granted, it's always really... It's different because of the way SMITE 2 items work, but my brain is still hard-coded to think more copious, therefore... you did better, and specifically looking at like the support builds, you could tell that like PBM just had a lot more going on. The team as a whole had a lot more going on for them because he had like 3 more items. 2 of them were probably tier 2s, but it still got the job done. I do like these changes. Scrumptious, again, first pick, first ban. What do they immediately do? Ban the Loki, get him out of here. And the response, team name but with 5Ms. Team but with 5Ms. Team. They just ban out Sobek. And again, maybe balance things a little bit. Raw has definitely been towards the top of the conversation, but Anubis, what was it? Anubis and that other guy that really confused me last time around. Chalk, that was banned out. And guess what? Anubis and Chalk get picked up instantly here.
and it's crazy to see the difference in like priority between regions, because yesterday CERN and or like Zeus were the ones that you're banning away. You're not letting any of those teams have them, and if one gets through, you kind of let both of them through. So seeing that in game number 1 is Anubis and Chalk really tells me that this is a scrim meta popping up between these teams. These are teams that have been scrimming against each other, have been watching each other's scrims and seeing what they're doing, and that's why those picks are there. Chalk has really risen up into prominence, and it's because he's got a lot of really low cooldowns in his kit and a lot of high sustain, and cooldown is just so accessible across the board. If you look at 3 of like the first 4 items that solo laners are picking up, there's some form of cooldown rate on them, so it's allowing you to get your abilities online to spam them. You're not sacrificing any stats. It's not like you're going, man, I got 25 CDR, but I got like 50 HP or like 10 damage. You're either getting a lot of damage plus CDR, or you're getting a lot of defense plus CDR, which is why we're seeing abilities spammed like crazy. Still a ton of sustain on both sides, really. Mostly self-sustain on the side of Scrumptious with the Anubis, the Amaterasu, but some team with the Raw. I don't know how much I like the Raw more. Now that Sobek is gone, I like the Raw a lot more for Scrumptious.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you throw a Bacchus into the mix, which is probably a little harder to do, but still viable if you throw maybe the Chalk into the jungle, throw a Bacchus in there, get some anti-heal, this Raw loses so much of its value on the side of Scrumptious because of how susceptible Anubis is for ganks. I mean, he does a ton of damage, like a lot of damage, but if you can get an early kill on him and really kind of stunt that damage in that build path, it can make it so much more difficult to fight into. So with what Team 5M's has built up, it's the ability to either go all in together or the ability to play back and play safe. I love what we've been seeing from BennyQ on this Akate because he plays both styles exactly how his team needs. It says, okay, we want to get aggressive. Benny, throw and open the gate to their back line. We're going to dive in. Or, hey, Benny, we need you to play safe. Have one ready for us to bail out. I think that this pick has just been so great for BennyQ and is going to be so tough for Scrumptious to fight into again.
Well, Scrumptious, they win this. They push us to a game 3. Team, but with 5 M's, they win this. They get to come to LAN in December. We'll have to see how it shakes out as we jump into game number 2.
1 game of Smite to go until you're headed to LAN. At least that's the truth for Team But with 5 M's. For Scrumptious, the journey is a little bit longer, a little bit harder. You dropped that first game in what was really, you kind of got dominated inbound, and well, yeah, the draft ran back, and you've got some thoughts overall on it, but you know, you break it down for me here at the start.
I mean, it's just a there's a lot of prio on Anubis, obviously. They're taking the Anubis first pick, and they banned it away last game. Jingwei has fallen down a lot for NA teams in terms of the value. You compare it to EU. EU side of things is, let's pick this Jingwei, and let's just, you know, win that side of the map. I do think there is a different look from Scrumptious this game. They have the Anubis Alma Raw. Like, if you look at the objective shred Scrumptious has with their comp, they have really good sustain and they have really good shred, so that they just play around walking to objectives, and then if somebody walks in, they just play to kill that person. I think it makes their comp really easy to play. And actually, Scream's on the wrong side of the map, isn't he? Yeah. So we're having Scream proxying or looking to stop the invade, or looking to invade, I should say. And then on the left side of the map, we have CERN and Ymir looking for an invade. I like this new early game where, like, these first few seconds actually matter. Scream's pathing mattered a lot to get where he is.
Yeah, was able to avoid vision where Haddox was sitting. It's very easy to get caught out there. And we'll just end up stealing those back camps. And also, like you said, proxying the wave up there in duo for Scrumptious as well. So any kind of early lane pressure advantage you can get, you're trying to take it. And I do love seeing that movement at the start of the game a lot more, rather than everyone just sitting there doing nothing for the minute and a half that nothing is happening. You know, do anything to try to get yourself an advantage. And there's so many ways to move around the map, even at the very start of the game, if you want to avoid or want to catch people out on a sort of invade. So I like seeing how some teams are trying to take advantage of that a little bit more. That being said, they'll get back and start on that duo buff, and we'll grab it. Scrumptious, get some of that early farm. Scream still sitting on the opposite side here. Shinto about to catch an axe. least Nog will. You know, Nog, we were kind of talking about it after the game, didn't really have the kind of presence that you were hoping for on the Odin. Like, you didn't see much engagement from him, and Amaterasu a bit different when it comes to engaging the enemy, not as much just dive and drop the cage, hope for the best. It's definitely a different approach, but hopefully Nog can feel a little more confident on the Amaterasu this time, because I thought that jungle difference really hurt them.
Yeah, and I think it's a slightly different comp for the side of Scrumptious because they have better CC on the side of things. They have the wrap, they have Rongu's freeze, so he doesn't need to be the main source of engage. I like that. But I also really liked how Team with 5Ms played this early game. This is, again, a Raw who is going to be behind because Jingwei started the right side and did the buffs with Cherry. Mike on this Baron invaded, it sundered away the red buff, and forced Haddix to go to lane, so Haddix lost his blue buff. And then that entire time, the only thing that the dual lane got on the opposite side is Zapman and Ronnie pushed in a wave or two and then got the speed and the purple buffs. But that entire time, Scream also invaded the yellow and the purple buffs on the enemy side of the map. So Scrumptious has now gotten a Ra again, who is behind. They have also gotten this Jingwei, who is even, who doesn't really care if she's slightly behind. Like, it's such a really interesting way to play the early game, but it was perfect because you get your Jingwei to level 3 and there's like no kill potential under her now. Baron also spikes really hard at level 3. He's not a great level 1, level 2 god. And you kind of avoid the strength of this Ymir Cern, who are really good level 1, level 2. And you put the Raw behind. Like, it was such a flawless start. Like, it doesn't matter they're down 100, 200 gold when the setup is just exactly what you want.
On the other side, or in the mid lane at least, Nog continues to harass, but not going to get much more out of it. Benny Q, very safe, and was 0-0-5 in the last game, but was involved in a lot of those fights. There was only 12 kills total for Team But with 5Ms. So having that kind of kill participation from your mid, considering how back and forth the trading of health bars and no deaths were, something you want to see from Benny Q. My focus is also about that Cyclone Spin Zapman matchup where, you know, Zapman tried to play aggressive even when he was down. I think they gave a little too much respect to Polar Bear Mike when it came to the Sobek and actually not letting Cyclone Spin get a lot of farm. This time they're the ones getting aggressive, getting a lot of damage out, forcing Cyclone Spin to leave, and there's a lot of focus. This time Nog misses the 2.
Blue assault.
And now has to leave it under the tower. Not a good position, but 4 players of Scrumptious sitting here behind the tier 1 in duo, and eventually we'll have to get out Nog as well. Zapman, you're staying a little too long. You better be careful. Does have to dash, but a blink. They want to get you, and you will get out barely. That was about as close as Zapman could make it. They're going to turn around on him too. Freeze into the kill. PBM goes down. First blood goes to Zapman, and that's exactly what they wanted out of it. They may even get a second kill as Benny Q came to assist and only got stunned and popped out back into the tier 1.
And that just looked very weird from the side of Team with 5Ms. Scrumptious sets up this purple buff invade very easily. They poke out the Jingwei, get it really low. And then it looked like Zapman overcommits a little bit. But, you know, Ronnie's there. He walls off the chalk, peels him out. And then the chase by Team with 5Ms just doesn't really make sense. You don't have the CC to really lock anyone down there. If Cherry's not in a lot of these fights, and if Mike's not level 5, you don't have CC. The Chalk was still only level 4. Benny had ult, but there's a lot of ways to immune Benny's ult to avoid Benny's ult, and that's what happened. It's just a weird chase that I don't think had any value by Team with 5Ms there. I think if they just take what happened, you know, lose that purple buff, take out Cyclone getting a little bit of poke, Cyclone's just gonna back and fly in. It seems like they felt like they had to force it because it was a really bad play by Scrumptious.
Ronnie having to avoid some of that. Zapman coming into assist. He's gonna dash into it, forces Cyclospin to use the ult, and Nog will force it out. So Nog is spending a lot of time over in this dual lane trying to force them back. Talk about not seeing as much action from him in the jungle in game number 1. We're seeing his name a lot more in these team fights early on. And while they get a little bit of pressure on that side, mid lane kind of deadlocked. We haven't seen a lot of action on that solo side, but we haven't seen the Chalk kind of rotate over to that duo lane. So you have to think Scream is kind of the same strategy as last time. Get over here, shut down Haddix early. Don't let that Raw get any semblance of online and rotating. So that game plan seems to be working for now for Team But with 5Ms. It's kind of the same makeup as last time though, inbound with You know, a lot of posturing, a lot of maneuvering, not a lot of killing. Zapman having to dash away. Cyclone Spin deep now in enemy territory. Actually start the fight because I have the health advantage. I can pop you, but you get ulted, and BBM comes from behind. Zapman gets deleted. Nog sticking around. You only have a little bit of assistance from Ronnie coming if he can get a freeze off, but Cyclone Spin should have an escape available here in a second. Gets sniped, gets freeze, and gets dead. Ronnie will get credit for the kill. Cyclone Spin just a little too long.
And either way, even if Cyclone dies there, he got that trade onto Zapman. He played that perfectly and actually forced Blink out onto Shinto. Cherry on the rotation does drop the ultimate. The Hakate paled on top of it, but the Purification does get them all out, and the ultimate by Anubis is traded onto Cherry now, also getting out very low. And a bunch of trades across the map this game, a lot more action. It looks like Scrumptious wants to try to push their lead, which is what we wanted to see. My only small issue with that fight by Scrumptious is Zapman passed extremely aggressively trying to kill this Jingwei. The Amir wraps around really slowly, and the Alma paths with him. So then Cyclone just turns around, trades onto Zapman. Mike is there. They get the kill onto Zapman. It doesn't really matter that, you know, Cyclone dies. He got the trade, and there's a massive rotation to the left side, so not a ton of farming done by either side. This is a very active early game, and I think Scream will also be going down here.
If Scream gets out of this, he's just fortunate. Because what were you doing chasing Nog halfway across the map, and then you go over here, still haven't done anything, and then you get a 1v2 and you get out? Yeah, I'd call yourself fortunate for that one.
And if Ra hits the ultimate too, it's a different story. If, you know, Anubis passed the other way, it's a different story. But the Chalk is a very hard god to catch because, as you see, he's opted into this Gem of Focus, the same thing Hakate has. He's going to be an intelligent scaling character, and another ultimate burned on Shinto. He does have the ultimate available, so no real kill potential here by Mike. But another ultimate on top. Shinto does get out. Again, a lot of fights happening in this game, a lot more, you know, action for both sides, but really nothing has actually happened. There's been fights, but nobody's dying. We're not getting Gold Furies. We're not getting too many buffs invade at this point. But it seems like teams want to look for something, and I think, especially on the side of Scrumptious, you have to want to look for something.
Yeah, the first Gold Fury in game one fell at 6 minutes in. But as soon as the team, but with 5Ms, had to, actually, I think it was Scrumptious who got it. Like, as soon as they felt 5Ms pull off on the map, they immediately went for that Gold Fury. There's been a couple of those moments, but there's been so much attention in that duo lane. It's been 3v3 so often over here that I don't think either team has been necessarily confident even trying to go for it, knowing that, you know, Ymir freezes on the way. You know, you could get zoned out, you could get life of the party. Like, a lot of things could go wrong, especially with how much attention has been put over here, but kind of puts the importance on getting that gold, considering, I mean, look at the gold lead right now, like a 400 gold difference. That's nothing at 9 minutes in. It is deadlocked right now.
And to kind of increase that gold lead, I think Scrumptious should look for an objective. They, again, have probably some of the best secure you can have in SMITE 2 if you could draft your own comp without P's and B's. Anubis just shreds. Ra is one of the best objective gods with this new build. Zapman on the Cernanos is the best shred character in the game, and then on top of all that, they have Nog, who's increasing the damage dealt to that, whether it's Gold Fury or Fire Giant. But they've been looking a lot more for fights instead of looking for objectives, and I think, again, it's fine, it's good that you're looking for fights, but if you're not really winning, I get a little worried about how Scrumptious is going to play these late game fights. It's a we have this inherent advantage with one thing, and it's doing objectives. We do that very, very well. My worry, again, as this game goes later is, I don't know who can shut down Cyclone. I don't think Nog will have the damage to kill Cyclone. They don't really have CC that can hit Cyclone. Like, Freeze is never really going to hit him. If Shinto's wrapping him, Shinto should probably be dying because he's too close to the enemy ADC. And it just seems like team with 5Ms is able to draft this Jingwei, and there's really no pressure put onto the Jingwei. Like, yeah, she'll die once, but I mean, when we get to those late game fights, I just can't see, unless the entire team around him is dying, I can't ever really see Cyclone dying in team fights. And he's also got the extra survivability and setup that, like, Hakate has also. I get worried seeing a Jingwei going into the late game if you don't have a true answer to her, and I don't think Scrumptious has.
Even the little look here in mid, Ronnie will end up leaving, going to farm up some more. But you've said so often about the Chingwei. If you're even, you're golden. And Life of the Party coming out as well, forcing the beat out of Shinto, but unfortunately for you, Life of the Party stays for a while, and you get pulled in regardless. Scream getting credit for the kill. And turn back around here for Nog. With a strong front line, pop the ult as well. That one might get it, but Scream gets out just in time, avoids the stun, but he actually gets right into Haddix, who is rotated over and picks up the kill. PBM in a little bit of trouble.
Heal.
How about all that healing to keep himself out, get the stun, and maybe even go back in for some more on the support, but Haddix has rotated in. A bit of a different look coming in. Benny Q kills Zapman. Zapman, what's going on, dude?
Zapman looked like he was... It looked like he was pathing aggressively to try to take that fight. And then the entire team with 5Ms didn't push forward into the fight. They just backed up and got the free kill onto him. It's just... It again just seems like Scrumptious. And I mean, this game for sure, also a team with 5Ms, the fights are just really sloppy and they're not like set up very well. They don't have like, let's use this one CC and get a kill off of it. It's super just almost like ranked style team fights. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially in the early game. If you don't have good CC, it makes it really hard to start fights and to end them really quickly. But I still, again, just think this benefits team with 5Ms. I like how their comp scales. Benny's level 13. This Anubis is level 11, Jorby. That is an issue. You want your Anubis to be ahead. You want your Ra to be ahead. And those two positions aren't.
Yeah, Benny Q silently but surely winning that lane. Meanwhile, Nog gets a ton of damage off on the Cyclone Spin, and there's no ult to escape. Airstrike never gets off the ground as the Glacial Shards pop him, and well, that was a ton of damage, though, from Nog onto Cyclone Spin. Meanwhile, Haddix gets aggressive against Cherry, and will force him back towards the teleporter and beyond to get a little bit more of that lane pressure. Zapman on the other side, getting zoned out by Scream, just trying to go back and help out Ronnie as well, deep on this left side jungle. And, well, Scrumptious, for everything that you've been loving about Team Up with 5Ms, been some interesting plays, but Haddix has actually had much more of an effect on this lobby than he did last game. Scream, while he has given some attention over to this solo lane, you notice they're even in levels. They're kind of on the same pace gold-wise. You know, Hades does have the Gem of Focus online, but Bra has the Gladiator's Shield now, so we'll be getting that extra damage off on those Divine Light procs, and we've seen it. Every time we've come over here, we see Haddix kind of outboxing Cherry, and the start on the Gold Fury for Scrumptious as they start to take control of this game.
And this is what I wanted to see. This is what your comp does well. They walk to that Gold Fury, they shred it in seconds. And I mean, Team with 5Ms is getting a little consolation prize in this Naga. This is not nearly as much value as that Gold Fury. But what I want to see Scrumptious do is I want them to play on this Hades side of the map. Kill the Hades, kill the Chalk. Why are we trying to kill this Jingwei? Like, yeah, we've killed him twice. You know he's still ahead. He still has hit level 12 before Zapman hit level 12. There are issues in this game. Pyro being pulled down at 2K.
They pick it up, they will. Thought maybe there'd be a challenge there. Everyone had left. Everyone will pull out. So Pyromancer, you get that. That's a little better. That plus Naga helps really stint the blow of losing that Gold Fury a little bit more. You'd still rather just have that Gold Fury, but look what it did to the little gold lead that that Scrumptious just had. Now they're down to under 1,000 when it was just close to 2,000 earlier. So, I mean, they completely dipped that right back to the line to make this close to even 15 minutes in. I mean, essentially even, but much better at this point in the game. This is where Scrumptious were starting to lose it, where things were starting to avalanche against them. And Team But with 5Ms kind of imposed their will on the rest of the game. But we're having those subtle differences. We talked about Haddix in the solo lane. Cyclone Spin isn't getting free lane clears, while PBM laughs at the enemy team just sitting in their jungle while he clears lane for free. You're not seeing that nearly as often. It has been a refocus on making sure that you know, your hunter, your support can stay in this fight, can actually be active in the fight, and as aggressive as Zapman has been, and not having those follow-ups. You talk about some of the comms and the team fights, but they're going to drop the ult as well. The Wild Hunt's going to find Cherry, and Haddix is going to clean up on the kill. Searing Pain is not going to find too much because of Haddix's build, but that's fine. You'll still pop at Divine Light as well in response to the Storm Call to get out. This is kind of a disjointed fight as everyone's leaving back. That leaves one exposed. PBM gets caught out, but if anyone was going to lose that, You probably lose PBM, you lose Cherry, you lost your whole front line, and now Scream and company are just hoping they can get a steal. But I don't think Scrumptious are thinking about this Fire Giant at all. They're hoping they can bait them in. They say, hey, if you're going to pull out, we will start it. It's a 5v3. We should have this. You still got Benny Q up, though. It's dropping quickly. Scream's coming in. They could have it. Who's going to grab it here? They let them in. Shinto kills Scream. And Haddix, Benny Q sitting right underneath, trying to do that damage as he also falls, and Nog will get that kill. So Scrumptious will wipe everybody clean, but you saw the steal did go to Cyclone Spin and team, but with 5 M's, and you just didn't have that zoning potential there, Bobby.
Yeah, and it again feels like teams aren't really looking for that zone, and a nice play here by PBM actually getting them and keeping it alive, and Cherry's actually here to get the kill on the Zapman. Double kill, almost got the third one, and then Shinto's actually blinking out. What a play by Cherry and PBM. Shinto may get out. He's healing so much, he's gonna get out.
He might even kill him. Shinto turns right back around on Cherry, and man, it looks like Anubis is dead. It always does. But believe me when I tell you that an Anubis on like 1/10 of his health is the most dangerous god in the game. Now you got another ult from Amaterasu, but you're not going to lock down Jingwei. You're not going to lock down Cyclone Spin, and you will get away from it. But I mean, this is not how Scrumptious wanted this to go, right? You were starting the fight on the Gold Fury, or on the Fire Giant. It was a 5v3. Nobody's really paying attention to who's coming in. Everybody's focused on trying to kill the Fire Giant, and Scream's just allowed to walk in. Benny Q's just allowed to walk in, and you gave Cyclone Spin a free Fire Giant. And that simply can't happen when you win that initial team fight. You've negated most of the benefit that you got, and then Cherry respawns and gets a double kill. Sure, Cherry falls right afterwards, but like everything that was positive there for Scrumptious kind of got canceled out.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to like zoning on these objectives. You have so much CC. You have very easy capabilities to kill if somebody walks in. They're just not using it. They're just taking the 50-50 on the Fire Giant. And as you said, stolen, and Jingwei gets it. Now they get this Gold Fury again. They're going to be getting their gold up a little bit more. But we have now seen the Jingwei, or sorry, the Amaterasu dash the Jingwei, and kind of how that 1v1 is going to go. This is probably the best point for Nog to actually look for that 1v1 before Jingwei gets that Xe online, before she gets either the crit online or whatever she plans on going after the Executioner. That's when she's supposed to be strong in this 1v1. And Cyclone still almost won it. And then the opposite side at this point, if you look at Zapman, Zapman isn't killing anyone. I don't think he's killing Cherry. I don't think he's killing Mike for sure. He can maybe kill Scream, but there's a massive XP difference. And the one time we saw Scrumptious actually make a good team fight play and they start pushing their lead, you want to know the side of the map it was on, Jorby? It was on the right side of the map while not trying to kill the Jingwei. They tried to kill the ones they could kill. Stop trying to kill the Jingwei, but it might just be too late. She's level 17.
Especially like you said, when the Xyz gets online. As the focus can't change there, now you have to focus Cyclone Spin. And as better as it has gone for Haddix on this Ra, like, you're still getting so much value out of Cherry's rotations. You're still getting value elsewhere in the team comp. And I mean, we talked to death about this Jingwei and the problem that she presents. Cyclone Spin will be popping this Naga down with Cherry. And Scrumptious are kind of at a, I wouldn't say a tipping point, because tipping point kind of means you lose the next fight. You know, things just completely go to team up with 5M's favor. I don't think we're at that point. I think Nog looks a lot better on this Amaterasu. I think there's a lot of good things that you can look at. Shinto has looked pretty good on the Anubis, despite everything else going wrong. He's actually caught up and got ahead of Benny Q. Benny Q was ahead, what, a level and a half a little bit earlier. And Shinto's turned it around on him. Life of the party up for PBM. And nobody's there for the follow-up. It's really just to protect the retreat. Scream comes in. Storm Call will find the silence on 3. And it does enough to make sure that they don't get dove on. And we'll have to retreat for now. But Scrumptious doing well enough to at least stay in the fight. They've lost that gold lead they built up early.
And they're looking for plays, but the entire time, team with 5Ms is just split off farming. Benny's now level 18, and we also have a level 18 on Cyclone Spin. Maybe actually can catch out Benny. This would be a really big pick if they can actually catch him out. He has a lot of movement speed with the gem. Yeah, Benny will die here. It depends on just how long.
Can get a stun, can delay because he has some support coming his way. PBM is here, just trying to dodge through the Anubis ult as well. You said, yeah, Benny Q for sure going to die, but here comes the cavalry coming through. Wait, the cavalry, they get dehooved. Ronnie gets the kill, and Cyclone Spin goes down. I mean, that is a huge kill. Haddix will force out PBM here. And I mean, that is not how Team But with 5Ms imagined that fight going at all as they came through to support. Sure, Benny Q lives, but then you lose Cyclones, but...
And I think it's just Cyclone playing just a little too aggressive. He's dashing in. He just doesn't have the damage to just shred at this point. He'll be able to kill you eventually, but it'll take quite a few autos. And it seems like he's already at the point of no return, where if he gets a couple autos, he'll just carry the team fight. He's not there yet. He is very close, though, and I'm still very worried about how this Jingwei is going to play once it gets a little bit later. But if Benny Q's taking that much damage, he's forced out of the fight completely. No Aegis available, no ultimate available. You're really the only damage at this point. The Chalk will be damage eventually, but at this point, he's not. So you have to be a little bit smarter if you're Cyclone Spin. I still don't hate the fight force. I just think it needs to be a little bit slower for Cyclone. When we get to these, I mean, we're 20 minutes, 22 minutes into this game. We've now seen a couple team fights kind of break out. It seems like team fights are usually more in favor of Team with 5Ms, but if you can get a pick with Scrumptious's comp, which they do very well, that's how they're going to find themselves to, you know, snowball this game. They found a pick onto Cherry for that first Fire Giant. They can find it onto PBM. They can find it onto Cherry again pretty easily. I think they just have to be a little bit smarter with their grouping. That grouping on left side and this Gold Fury is a little risky because Fire Giant's up. There's 5 here.
The snipe does catch 2. And I don't think Team Up with 5Ms want to catch it there as soon as they see that series pain. That kind of feared them out of that one, didn't it? Ronnie was there as well with the freeze. It wasn't a guarantee at all, but you could also have the rest of that rotation. Zapman is going to do what he can do to get as much structure damage out as possible. First takes down that Gold Fury. They get the tier 1 in mid. So they got a lot done there on the objectives. Team Up with 5Ms, that attempted response on the Fire Giant getting denied by Haddix. And you see what the gold lead has done. It has completely flipped the other way. Right when Team Up with 5Ms were starting to take control right after they steal that Fire Giant, right? That's where you see that dip into the red. But then they even it up. They get that Gold Fury. And there's just no response as Team Up with 5Ms. The only objective they've really been able to secure is this Pyromancer. And they might not get it this time as Haddix comes across. PBM here to stun him out of it. They're still going to try to confirm it as Ronnie comes in to try to get it. And Haddix still on it as well. Pyromancer goes down. I believe Scrumptious did get that one. Life of the party to respond. Forces the beads out. Talisman of Purification. Haddix just going to sit right through on the front line. Gets a little bit of support on the back end as well. This one's looking okay for Scrumptious right now. They've zoned them out, but Cherry on the back line takes down Haddix. Coming across Zapman, takes down Benny Q, but pays for it with his life. Cherry taking him down, and Ronnie just gets completely zoned out of this play. Nothing he can do about it. This one slowly but surely goes to Team But with 5Ms. Shito on the run. PBM does eventually find Ronnie, and it's only Nog and Zapman left here. A 3-for-1. You will absolutely take it if you're 5Ms.
And we're starting to see the issue with the Scrumptious comp. They have the CC. It's just single target. It's really small, and it's like one opportunity to win the fight. But as the fights become extended, I mean, Cyclone's doing the damage at this point. Benny even teleported in. I don't know if you saw that. He used his ultimate to peel himself off from the Raw who was diving him, and he went into the fight, and it's just like a stomp fight by Team with 5Ms. They win that fight. They get this Fire Giant, but Nog is actually looking to contest. Maybe a steal here.
Nog? I think maybe. I can't tell at this angle blocked by the Pillar of Agony. They did not get it, Team with 5Ms. It got stolen by Scrumptious, unless Benny Q.
No, they got it. Benny was still dead.
Okay, Benny was dead. All right, yeah.
And that's a very good Fire Giant for them to get, because now they should just be able to end the game. If Cherry gets picked here, though, this is really bad. Okay, Cherry barely ends up living. And maybe actually Shinto looks for the chase, but I think there's no reason to chase here. That is very lucky that Cherry ends up living there, because that would have been an incredible pick to slow the game down for Scrumptious to kind of get them back. But again, every time I look at this game and as it goes later and later, Jorby, I don't see how this Jingwei is going to get shut down. I don't really see how Scrumptious is going to be able to win these team fights. We see Haddix kind of walk through into fights, and he just doesn't do the damage to Cyclone to really threaten Cyclone without Cyclone being able to kill him. And if he's on Benny, then Cyclone's free casting onto him. So this Raw is falling off at this point. The Anubis is going to be falling off at this point. And you're playing into a Jingwei, a Hades whose damage is incredible right now, and he also will live for a pretty long time, who also gets peel from the Hekate ultimate. Like, I really love this comp drafted by Team with 5Ms, especially when it comes to these 5v5 fights.
Yeah, they have really found a way to crunch Scrumptious, and Like some of those objective fights, just Scrumptious always kind of playing from behind it or just trying to keep up. When it looks like they finally take control of the game, I mean, 5M's come right through and they're like, okay, cool, but you actually have to win this fight to take control of the game, and then they can't win that fight. They always find a way to get back into it, but then, like, the crucial fights you're losing are the one where it's the most important, which is the Fire Giant. They can't get a single one of them, and without that kind of buff, like, it's so hard to target, right? You talk about impossible to lock down Jing Wei. All you really have is a Ymir freeze and an Amaterasu ult, and the only way you're going to catch Cyclone Spin is if he puts himself out of position at this point. So 5M's, we're talking about them kind of giving the game away at this point with how that they've played it, which is kind of crazy to say with how close, like, you just look at all the stats across the board, right? 11-9, 2K gold lead, even XP differences haven't been massive, yet you're talking about 5M's just looking like they've got the difference right now. Nog, while he's been a lot better in this game, it simply has not been enough for Scrumptious to hold back the tide here. And the left side about to get real active as a lot of damage done onto Zapman, who has been shut down in this series overall. Team up with 5M's, want to go to land. They're playing like it.
I almost want to see them go for that tier 1 and then back up to that Ancient Fury. They have a really difficult time sieging into this comp of Scrumptious with the CC available, the walls, and Baron ult used here is just going to be traded out with the Ymir wall. Hakate ult on top.
Misses on the ult as well. PBM gets Zapman. Haddix will get Scream. And that's not an insignificant kill. Not enough to force 5M off of this Phoenix, but maybe enough that you can get in with some of that front line gone. And Nog knows it, pops the ult, forces some beads out. But all that healing from PBM is going to make life difficult. They're just sustaining. They're outlasting. Cherry in on the ult. Cherry getting all of them down. Ronnie, do what you can, but Betty Q is gonna kill you. Everybody following here on Scrumptious, looking like a date with the lower bracket, as the date for 5M's will be on land, but they survive for a little bit longer. A couple of deaths, maybe caught a little early. Cherry and Scream down, and that Phoenix still wasn't down. They just chased him to get those kills. 4 wipe. They will get this Phoenix, but can they actually close?
And this is just a... No way they're actually looking for the end here. 10 seconds on Zapman. They're going to have to put all their damage onto this, and even then, this is going to be very close.
It'll be a tight one. Haddix just has to hold him for a little bit. Titan health dropping slowly, but surely. Not enough, though. Not fast enough. Zapman's alive. That has a lot of damage to pop out. Betty Q actually kills Haddix. Zapman goes down to Betty Q with the huge damage. PBM stuns him out. Team, but with 5M's, qualify for land.
And if we can ignore the first 10 minutes of both games, that was a perfect 10 to 25 minutes in both game 2 and game 1 for Team with 5M's. I thought they played their team fights near flawlessly. I thought they knew what their comp was. They knew what they needed to do with it, and they executed nearly perfectly. A pick here or there doesn't really slow their game plan down. If you're looking at Scrumptious, if you're drafting these early game comps, these comps that are reliant on picks and stuff like that, you have to look for those picks. Playing towards this Jing Wei lane is like a futile, it's just a task you can't do. She's too safe. Get your raw ahead. Play through your raw. That's who you want to carry this early portion of the game. Why are we trying to kill this Jing Wei, who's ahead of Zapman the entire game? It's just, Scrumptious has good comps. I think they just need to look at why they're playing this comp and then push that part of the reason. The reason is the raw. Play through the raw.
I mean, I think you're kind of pointing to it inbound where Scrumptious, it really wasn't a bad game. It's little things that are kind of tripping them up. Little things that they have to work on, right? When it comes to the comp picks, when it comes to playing your comp correctly, I think those adjustments are a lot easier for a team to make. You know, this isn't just a straight up skill difference between both teams, maybe more so just a strategy difference. And I think that makes that really exciting. It definitely felt like a 2 seed versus 3 seed in that game number 2. Game 1, you know, 5M's, they absolutely crushed them, and they do qualify for land now. But I'm curious to see how Scrumptious will do in that lower bracket. They're not out of it just yet, but we're going to go back to the desk as they break all of that down. So let's have it back to J-Mac and Trelly. Or Gore.
Yeah, there we go. He fixed it before I could. It is exactly what they say. Not the end of the road for Scrumptious. And who knows, maybe we'll get to see a lot of them later. Maybe they'll end up still qualifying, but they're going to have an arduous path ahead of them. Meanwhile, if you're Team But with 5M's, you're coming to LAN. That's going to be, I think, the biggest thing to focus on right here, J-Mac. This game, by the way, much more competitive than Game 1. Game 1, very one-sided. It was like 12-1 by the very end of it. There was a lot of focus in the duo lane. You had mentioned it, but they kind of shut down hi-rez early on. In this instance, we get to see a lot more from Scrumptious all around. I mean, they've got kills, they're making proactive play, but unfortunately for them, it still just comes up short with even, what was it, like 3 people at the very end who are walking in from Team But with 5Ms to take down the Titan.
Yeah, this was a much better matchup and a lot better start for Scrumptious as well, even picking up the first couple of kills before Team But with 5Ms was able to even answer back. And Scrumptious had really good objective play. Had the first 3 Gold Furies of the game. It was really only the Fire Giants that they weren't picking up. Those ones were going over to Team Bo with 5Ms. But when it came down to the actual team fighting, the big thorn in Scrumptious' side was this Hades. Cherry was doing an insane amount of work on this guy, just being in the middle of everybody. This anti-heal that he just picked up just as a little bonus treat to have. Not even necessarily just like to be 100% anti-healing anybody, just like the, hey, what little healing you do have, you get a little bit less of it right now. And I think it's worked out really well and has been a really good answer to the Raw solo, because what does Raw solo do really well? Clear the wave and stay alive. Well, if you have somebody else who can clear the wave just as efficiently, such as this Hades, you press 1, then press 3, and all of a sudden the whole wave is cleared. Or once you get your silence, you press 2, then press 3. All of a sudden, your Raw solo's big factor is now it just needs to stay alive. But he can't get out of a Hades ultimate. If he gets trapped in the middle of the vortex of that Pillar of Agony, Talisman of Purification is not going to get you out. That's not going to get you enough ZC immunity to be able to break out of there. And Raw doesn't have anything aside from just movement speed. And you're not going to be able to move fast enough to break from that vortex. Not only that, BennyQ and Hecate, I said at the start of the death segment, we've been saying it pretty much every single time this team is playing. Benny's really damn good at Hecate, and somebody has to start taking this pick away from him. The problem is now is that there are so many good mid laners out there. If you want to go for safety, you can play Kukulkan and just sit in the back, farm AFK until you get your ultimate and start getting that big damage online. He was also a really good Raw player back in Smite 1, and now that Raw is kind of good in Smite 2, he's got to fall back there. There's Anubis, there's Zeus. There's so many options available to BennyQ that taking his best pick away, while it isn't the answer, it's at least one factor to try and putting a pin into what Team with 5Ns is able to do.
Well, I am excited for this because we've been trying to get players in, especially when they qualify for an interview. And it's somebody who I haven't gotten to talk to in a little while. And I actually feel like I had a dream that had a premonition for this. We've got Mike, I believe, who's just going to be on the call. So you'll hear his voice kind of booming over well, it's in technical terms, it's called the voice of God, literally. So like that. Mike, first off, I got to ask, man, you guys are going to LAN. How does it feel?
It feels good. It'll be really fun. I moved out of Georgia once, the pro league kind of went back to, what we're doing now.
Back, huh?
yeah. I mean, why not? No, I'm excited to see everybody. It's been a while. Get some of the favorite restaurants in, all that. Everybody knows I like food, so I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, you know what? That's the same. Whenever I'm making a travel itinerary, it's the exact same thing. So realistically, me and you are on the same page. I do want to ask you from your perspective as the not just like a player, but like for your team as a whole. What was the biggest difference between Game 1 and Game 2? Like the control in Game 1 and how one-sided it was versus Game 2 and how much more competitive it felt?
They just had a much better early game. Just like a bigger early game advantage, I guess I should say, over us in this game, specifically in duo, right? Like the Cern is more powerful than Jing early, Ymir is more powerful than Baron early. Luckily, Spin and I were disciplined late game players. It doesn't really phase us that much, and you can draft however you want. As a wise ADC once said, they only have impact with early game. We don't need a lead to have the impact.
Now, one of the big things in Smite 1 was kind of, maybe hiding stretch. We didn't get to see a lot of the scrim meta, but your team in particular has pretty much left everything out there. You've been streaming all of your scrims, anything that's been going on with your team. How much do you think that has kind of changed the dynamic of, maybe the competitive pool where you're not really hiding strategy anymore? You're saying, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's what we think is good.
Yeah, I mean, if it was up to me, everything that we do would be streamed. Of course, we've pulled that back a little bit recently just out of respect for the people we're scrimming against as well as we're preparing for a tournament. To me, I just see it as, while we're in this alpha phase, we have less characters and we're playing against largely the same people. So it's not really a surprise to me what Aurora wants to do, what Rongyu wants to do, for example. So I feel like being able to get more people from the community involved and kind of promote the game as it's growing is really valuable, in my opinion, and that's why I enjoy it so much. And then, yeah, past that, I feel like it also kind of helps everybody else kind of understand like why we do the things we do. And I also think it's really cool, like shout out to Food Drive for Globe. Like I think it's really cool to see other teams, like they are a really good team, like genuinely. I think they are a very talented team. And it's really cool to see newer talent. They're not even new talent, but it's people who weren't in the pro league get to show that they were really good. And I feel like just kind of bringing all of that together is good for all of us combined.
I guess the last question, and it's less a question and more just a platform. Do you guys want to do you want to shout out your teams, like the Twitches and places where they can follow you so that people can get in on the action? Because I know you were streaming like these games too, right? So being able to watch it pretty much any time. Do you have any shout outs you want to give?
We didn't stream today, but yeah, Scream's Twitch is Scream with 5 M's and a 1 at the end. Yeah, Scream with 5 M's, 1 at the end. Cherio's just Cherio. I'm PBM Smite. I believe Benny Q is just Benny Q. It might be Benny Q Smite. Let me go check that.
I want to say it's just Benny Q.
Is it Benny Q?
I feel like it might be Benny Q Smite.
Wait, is it still S Benny Q?
Oh, it might be S Benny Q. That's right.
Q.
I think it is lowercase.
I just
S
ignore
Benny
the
Q.
first letter
It's
because that's not his
Q.
name.
Yeah, I knew it was something else. Yeah, it's S Benny Q. And then Cyclone Spin, I believe, is a Cyclone Spin. But yeah.
Yeah, it's been really fun. I actually got to talk to Cherry not too long ago about it, and I remember he had mentioned that sometimes it had been difficult getting scrims and stuff because of streaming. But much like you, I think it's just really cool to see it all out there, and you get a bunch of different perspectives. For those of you who are watching at home, it's a great way to just see everything. You get to hear everything different. You get to see the player perspective exclusively. You can always follow your favorite players. And, of course, you can continue to watch Team Name but with 5 M's as they continue to play, because not only are they going to play later today, but also they're going to be at LAN in a month. So congratulations on your win, Mike. Thanks for your time. And I guess good luck in the future in the next month of scrims.
Thank you. I'll see you guys in a bit. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Take care.
You too.
You too.
Man, it's always going to be fun when they're here. And again, much like I guess Mike said, people coming back, right? And so being able to, for some of these players, visit the area and meet up with people they haven't seen in a while. For some of them, play on LAN for the first time, if not, period, then in a long, long time. It's going to be really exciting. And of course, J-Mac, I feel like this is a team, realistically, as we look at them, that will power up. I feel like they get stronger when they're on LAN, not just as players, but realistically, I just feel like having that environment again, being together again, for them having experienced it in the past, it'll be like a punch to the motivation.
I mean, it's almost in a similar vein, when we go from, casting online to, being here in a studio, is you get that extra layer of communication that you normally did. Doing everything on a Discord,
you get
where
I could point at you and be like, huh?
Yeah, you get, maybe there's maybe a small delay, but you don't really have that immediate connection with them. You're just talking to voices in the ethereal. But when you're here in a studio, playing together side by side, you really get that interpersonal connection with them. You can reach over and be like, dude, stop what you're doing. We need to go do something. If you need to make a call, you can physically look at the person you're trying to make the call to and say, hey, we need to go do this right now. There's just that extra layer of communication that really elevates, and I feel that this is a team that really excels and gets better with that extra level.
Yeah, and realistically, and this is going to be fun as we continue to look through the bracket, as we continue to look through these other teams that are going to be playing today, who they go against. It's looking at the 3 teams from EMEA yesterday, now adding Team but with 5 M's to that list. That's a scary, scary bracket, and so that's the thing that I think I'm most nervous for, is what LAN is going to look like, and of course who's going to be joining them. That's the big question. As you can see, some updates of what's been going on. So if I remember correctly, up next we're going to be watching Cowabunga versus Food Drive for Globe. What a treat! Wow. Winner of that will face Team Name but with 5 M's. Down in the bottom, though, the updates for where the bracket was at. Kitty Party does take out Mr. Play-by-Play, which I believe, as you mentioned earlier, has happened in the past.
Yep.
So for them, just doing it again. Borscht as well, beating out Name in Progress. So 2 more teams eliminated. And that means we've got Scrumptious taking on Kitty Party, something that they're going to have to take on and do their best. And again, move forward to try and qualify. Borscht awaiting the loser of our next match to see who will continue forward. Of course, Borscht, a team we're keeping our eyes on, knocked down by Scrumptious. Maybe we'll get a rematch of Borscht v Scrumptious. Maybe it'll be something a little fresh. But again, J-Mac, the next one is maybe the one that is very exciting for all the right reasons. Two teams that have shown they're just really good at SMITE 2, and they're going to be taking each other on for that spot to qualify.
Yeah, I think this next semifinal is going to be a really good one. Cowabunga has kind of hit the same level, but maybe like one notch slightly lower than what we saw from EMEA's Team Risk. Team Risk, undefeated. Not a single game dropped, not a single set dropped, all the way through the Founder Series. Cowabunga has had one set, with the asterisk, we got to put that there, but also one individual game drop to Scrumptious. I believe that was in week 2 of the open bracket. But since then, it was smooth sailing for Cowabunga. They 3-0'd their way through the Swiss bracket, all 2-0s that direction, and so far in the playoffs, they've also just got nothing but 2-0s. So now it's up to Food Drive for Globe, who has been a team that has really been ramping up pretty heavily. I kind of equated them at one point to Team Name But with 5 Ends, where they're a team that really likes to try unique things and really experiment. But more often than not, it does end up working well for the team. You know, when Tegveer is playing these weird assassin ADCs, it's kind of working out really well for them. But at the same time, we're seeing Tegveer really adapt his way back into the more traditional style of play, and that's also working for Food Drive for Globe. So I think that this is going to be a really fun matchup to watch.
Yeah, and well, I was going to say I can't wait, but I have to wait no matter what. It's going to be a short break. But when we come back, Cowabunga, Food Drive for Globe, and the next spot at LAN on the line. Make sure that you stay tuned. We'll see you in a bit.